Thanks for tuning into another CSE listed issuer update. Today we have Trent Woloveck. Trent is the Chief Strategy Director of Jushi Holdings Inc. It's JUSH on the CSE. I'm Anil Mall, representing the Canadian Securities Exchange. Trent, thank you so much for your time today. I hope you're doing well.
Good morning, Anil. Thanks for having me on this morning.
Absolutely. Trent, a lot of our viewers are familiar with Jushi, but for some of them that might not be too familiar with what Jushi does, why don't you give us a brief introduction to Jushi, and then we'll get into our conversation.
Sure. So Jushi is a multi-state operator. We've been publicly listed since June of 2019. We operate in 7 states, 5 of which were vertical, meaning we cultivate, manufacture, and retail, with really 2 high growth markets in Pennsylvania and Virginia, and looking forward to continuing to grow the business moving forward.
You know, Trent, cannabis, it's still a very maturing industry, still lots of growth to happen. Currently, the big topic, it's been potentially rescheduling. Why don't you paint a picture for not only myself, but our audience of what this could mean for Jushi and the industry as a whole?
Sure. I think, first and foremost, it continues to normalize in societal views, what cannabis is. So currently, with cannabis being a Schedule I narcotic, that means it's highly addictive and no medical benefits. With the FDA/HHS recommendation going to Schedule III, I think that validates a lot of the work the industry's been doing, for a long, long time. Myself being in the industry since 2009, it really does validate, a lot of the patient and consumer wins that have been going on for quite some time. And so with that reclassification of cannabis, being requested by President Biden back in October of 2022, and the HHS coming out with their recommendation, on August 30th of 2023, we're now kind of in the process of waiting for the DEA to come back and make sure, A, they have some rules and regs in place, and B, not having the U.S. foot fault from a legal perspective. And so, what does 280E do for the industry? I think, what we know it absolutely does is remove us from the taxation of 280E. So I know, from an investor standpoint, that opens, a lot of free cash flow for these businesses. Jushi being a little bit heavier and focused from a retail perspective, it definitely outweighs for us versus somebody that may focus a little bit more on wholesale. And so we're really excited about, not only the free cash flow that would be generated for the business, but again, just the normalization of cannabis within the United States.
Well said, Nat. I really appreciate that insight. And so as the industry matures, where do you see the next series of wins in the business, and what might be some of the challenges that are still there? Obviously, banking is one of the big ones, but are there any others that you want to talk about?
Yeah, sure. I think, it's important to understand, with normalization, with the rescheduling of cannabis, you'll see that safer banking kind of bill pass it shortly on the heels of that rescheduling, in my opinion. And so, being able to have access to financial institutions, financial markets, I think just continues to help, build on the strong fundamentals that, Jushi has, along with a lot of the other U.S. multi-state operators. And so, I think that's first and foremost, being able to have that acceptance, have that ability to, leverage capital growth for an industry that, quite frankly, is a growth industry. And so, getting away from worrying about free cash flow, worrying about public markets. That is going to be a huge lift for the industry as a whole. But then you're going to continue to see, states normalize and move towards adult use cannabis. Back in November, Ohio passed a ballot initiative, 60 plus or excuse me, 50 plus percent, high 50s, in a very conservative state. And so, we have a vertically integrated business there, cultivation and manufacturing, one store. We'll look to grow there from a retail perspective. And make investments into the state, hire people, pay more taxes. And so I think you're just going to continue to see those dominoes fall. We have a bill for adult use on the governor's desk in Virginia that's passed the legislator. So we're excited about that growth, where we have, 95,000 square feet of cultivation, manufacturing, and 6 retail operational stores in Northern Virginia. And look, in Pennsylvania, the governor's come out in his State of the Union / budget address. He expects real tax dollars to flow into the state to the tune of $250 million. And, there's a bill out there that's bipartisan in the Senate. And so now that they're coming back into session, I think, we'll really start to see some movement there. And then obviously, Jushi's not in Florida, but it's a pretty important, bellwether state for the U.S. And I think they'll have a ballot initiative, on the docket come November of this year. So a lot of exciting things, not only happening at the federal level, but more importantly for these businesses at the state level as well.
While we're on this growth topic, you want to maybe walk us through Jushi's portfolio of assets and your current growth?
Sure. So, we continue to see the maturity of Virginia with the medical market. And so, we've seen quarter over quarter, high single digits, low double digits growth. And I think we continue to see that. That's something that's, going to continue. Pennsylvania has kind of plateaued just because they have such strong patient adoption already, 5.5% of the total population. And so we'll continue to see, pricing stabilize there, but obviously with adult use and how quick we could get that implemented there, you're going to see a great lift there towards the back end of the year. Massachusetts, where we have 2 stores, I think we have, a top 3 store in the state. That's been a great market for us. Ohio, obviously gearing up to flip to adult use at the beginning of September. Illinois, we've seen, strong stabilization of our 2 Sage stores, which sit on the border of Missouri, which transitioned, to adult use at the beginning of 2023. We've seen people start to come back over because of, pricing, selection, and quality of product. And our Bloomington Normal store have, fortunately, not really been impacted by any new licenses. And then you have Nevada, which is, starting to stabilize. It's been a tough market just because of all the free money that was, sloshing around the economy. All went to Vegas, all went to Nevada. And so we feel good about where we're at there. And then, we have 1 operational store left in California. And so, that'll be what it will be. Good news is it's not a drag from a cash flow perspective. So that's kind of our high level portfolio of where we're at.
Well said. Now, the company did put out 2023 financial results. You want to maybe walk us through some of the highlights and maybe a recap for 2023?
Sure. So, from a revenue perspective, we were right around $270 million, low 40s EBITDA. That's a huge win for us. We saw, continued growth of EBITDA as a percent of revenue throughout the entire year. Back in 2022, we weren't really even an EBITDA producing business. So, our focus on profitability, managing SG&A, OpEx, and so on and so forth, was a huge win for us, being able to really dial in, our retail flow, and staffing was a huge plus for us. And so you saw that profitability, skyrocket, quite frankly. We were also able to dial in our grower processor facilities, both in PA and VA and Massachusetts, which allowed us to push more of our own branded products through our stores. We got to about 55% of our shelf space from an overall company perspective, where we are vertically integrated of selling through our own products. That really does increase the margins of the business. And then we are also able to grow our wholesale business in 2023, 30% up year over year, where majority of companies were staying flat, if not down. And so, bringing 175 new SKUs to market in Q4 is only going to continue for us into 2024 and beyond. And so we feel really good about, where we're going, both from a margin perspective, but from a fundamental business perspective as well.
Any other milestones for 2024 that you are able to talk about?
Yeah, look, I think, us being able to open up the last couple of dispensaries, we're able to do, really dial in and drive, product growth, new product growth out of our stores, knowing what the demand is from, both our patients, but also our customers, is something that's on the forefront. And then, look, I think for us, it's cleaning up our balance sheet, taking care of that maturity at the end of the year. And then hopefully with federal normalization and/or a couple of our states transitioning from medical to adult use, we can go back into, M&A mode, being able to beef up our retail footprint in, existing markets and/or new markets are really something that we've built this business on and want to continue to build this business on.
You mentioned something that I'm quite curious about, because over the years, Jushi has had a strong footprint. What have you and your team learned about consumer behavior and your products based of the data that your team has collected over the years? Were there any surprises?
Yeah, I think, the maturity of cannabis industry as a whole over the last, let's call it 2.5, 3 years, you used to be able to just grow cannabis and put it in a bag and you sold cannabis. That's not really the case anymore. And so what we've seen and really observed through our retail channels is, what's inside the bag really matters. The quality and the standardization of the product, whether that's, a flower, a vape pen, a concentrate, a gummy, a chocolate, you need to have high quality product in that bag for it to sell. We've pushed really hard our GPs to do that, and they've answered, which is a great feeling, luckily. And so not only that, but you're starting to see, costs come down as you scale facilities. And so pricing compression, which has been a very real thing in the industry over the last couple of years, that costing is going to start coming down along with it, so you can maintain profitability. That's a super important thing. But also from a products perspective, most people are interested in buying, a half ounce or an ounce now, or a 1 gram card or a 2 gram card even now, versus like a half gram or an eighth, over the last, 5+ years. And so, you're starting to see that incremental package become bigger. And so that way, with inflation and other things being stretched from a pocket perspective, people are still wanting their cannabis, which is a huge positive.
Which is a win for all of us. Now, you mentioned earlier you've been in the industry since 2009, if I'm not wrong. Can you maybe touch on a little bit of your background, how you got into this space?
Sure. So I was fortunate enough to graduate with a finance degree right in 2008. So beautiful time to have that happen. And so, those who can't bank go into consulting. And so did that for a couple of years. However, my cousin who moved out to Denver, Colorado, they had some changes from a regulatory standpoint that, didn't allow people to own equity that weren't 2-year residents. And so I was able to make my first investment through my cousin at that time as she was rolling up businesses. And then I moved out to Denver with Cardinal Health, a big pharmaceutical medical supply distributor, in 2012, and saw the ballot initiative pass that November. Ended up inventing a child-resistant exit bag, meaning a package that people needed to have so kids couldn't get in it when they sold adult use here in Colorado starting January 1st of 2014. Worked in my cousin's retail store for a couple months, and then started their own business, and did some consulting work, helped people win licenses across the country. Joined a large vertically integrated company here in Colorado called The Green Solution. As we were kind of growing and expanding outside of the state of Colorado, we needed some capital, and fortunately, I got to meet our CEO, chairman, co-founder, Jim Cassiopo, through Dennis Arsenal, another co-founder of Jushi, former CEO, chairman of Organigram. And we've been having fun and running the business, growing the business ever since the late 2017, early 2018. So it's been a wild ride, and it's not stopping anytime soon. And so looking forward to continuing to progress the industry with this federal normalization that's coming.
And speaking of fun, Trent, I really enjoyed this conversation. I feel like we could probably talk about this for a long time and go through a lot of stuff, which I'm eager to do. But I know part of this clip is making sure that our audience knows about the company and what your focus is. We always encourage our viewers to go to your website, sign up for your press releases, newsletter, do their due diligence, and of course, reach out to you and your team should they have questions. Where would you like to direct our viewers?
Yeah, I think ir@jushico.com from an email perspective. It's all on our website, jushico.com. You'll find a lot of fun, exciting things there. We're a very tech-forward company, and so go there and we'll be in touch with you.
Trent, why don't we do this again, maybe towards the end of summer, where we can provide another update to our issuers. I'm going to give you the last 30 seconds for any messaging you want to provide to our audience on why they should be paying attention to Jushi as a company and you and your team as leaders in this space.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate, again, the time today and the focus on Jushi. For us at Jushi, we're in a unique position with a lot of optionality and a lot of growth. Over 65% of our stores are still in a medical market. And so as we transition to adult use, you'll see a lot of torque left within the business and leverage for growth, not only at a revenue perspective, but from an EBITDA perspective, which makes us a highly coveted business, both from a merger perspective, but also from an acquisition perspective. And so looking forward to being able to capitalize and garner shareholder value from that perspective.
Thank you. So to our viewers watching, you've been listening to Mr. Trent Woloveck. He's the Chief Strategy Director of Jushi Holdings. It's JUSH. And Trent, again, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today. And we look forward to hosting you on again. Our team at the CSE wishes you and your team at Jushi nothing but success as you move forward in this path.
I appreciate it. Have a great day.